ready. All right. Oops, what just happened? So I hope, oh, there we are. We are live.
Oh, sweet. Awesome.
Ooh. All right, so me and, uh-oh, something slowed down. Hold on. Give Facebook a chance to catch up here.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. We've got some people signing in. So I am super excited, you guys, because this is episode numero uno of Breaking Protocol. And this is the series that I call Women in Healthcare Breaking Protocol. And I wanted to start this series of conversations because I had been in private having a bunch of conversations with some amazing women who were doing some really neat and interesting things that really, quite frankly, are not the norm. And I also, on the other hand, coach a number of women who have these amazing ideas and want to break out of the box, break protocol, do some really cool things in their lives, but they are terrified. And so I think that there oftentimes is power in sharing one story, and also power in hearing how we think a lot differently. And sometimes, it's just my hope with this series that we will open people's minds and share some ideas, some opportunities, some options, some possibilities, and then to also show people that the ups and the downs, the ins and the outs, and be like just real conversation about, breaking protocol is not an easy thing to do, but on the other side, it's so rewarding. So that's my intro to what I'm doing, why we're doing it, and I want to introduce you all to this amazing human being in front of me named Rena Eleazar. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly or close. Okay.
Yeah.
And we met through a Facebook group called the Women in PT Summit, probably about a year or so ago, and had a conversation, hopefully very similar to the one that we had now. And I just felt like she was a kindred spirit. We had some very similar thought processes, and she had an amazing story. And I was like, if I ever do a podcast, I want to have her on. And I thought people should be like little flies on the wall when they heard us talk, because I had never heard really anybody else speak like that. And since her conversation, I've met many, many more unicorns, right? And just, I'm excited to see where it goes. I have no idea where this conversation is going to go, you guys, but it's my intention, it's my hope that it helps some or all of you. So when I asked Rena to share with me her bio, she shared some things, and what I found on her Instagram, and you guys, it is amazing. It's like one of my favorite words, but I just want you to understand that it's kind of like delicious. Like it really has to be amazing, or it really has to be delicious if I use it. And so check out her Instagram page, you guys, because it's pretty amazing. And so she says there that her bio, what she's up to, you guys, is building strong, resilient, confident female athletes and humans by helping them focus on the 98%, which is the average amount of time that they're not spending in training. She is the co-founder of Match Fit Performance, which she's rocking today, representing. Former competitive swimmer, Olympic weightlifter, Lululemon New York City ambassador, and a dancer, hip hop, ballet, and was it tap that I saw?
Yep, I did do tap at some point.
I love people like that. Like, that is so varied. So we're going to get into some of all of that today. And I just want, if you could just start and share with those who are watching and or listening, a little bit about you, your background, your story, and how you got from where you are today, badass business owner. And I really actually also want to make sure that you put in your story how soon after you got out of PT school. Oh, I forgot to mention that very important thing. She's a doctor of physical therapy, you guys. How soon after you got out of PT school did you start your business, and did you get any flack for that? Okay, so I'll turn it over to you.
So as far as my story, I feel like parts of it have become more important over the years as I've been developing myself as a business owner and also contributing to our business. So I guess I'll start with childhood and athletics. So yes, I was a dancer for a while. I trained in ballet and tap for a bit. Kind of moved on from that, kind of let go of ballet for a while to pursue swimming. I feel like parts of it have become more important over the years as I've been. Hang on, sorry, I'm getting an echo, I think, from myself on Facebook.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me see how we stop this echo.
Childhood and athletics. So yes, I was a dancer for a while. I trained in ballet and tap for a bit. Kind of moved on from that, kind of let go of ballet for a while.
If I do that, I'll lose all of the things.
More important over the years as I've been on. Sorry, I'm getting an echo, I think, from myself on Facebook.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me stop this echo. Oh boy.
Yes,
I'm afraid if I do this, I'm going to lose everything. But that's okay. If we lose it, we'll just come right back. Okay. It's good. It says we're still live on Facebook. So.
Okay. Awesome.
All right. So let me pull it up on my phone so that I don't lose where we are, because some people are already asking for your Instagram page. Don't worry, you guys. Anything that I reference in here, I will put in the show notes. I'm going to make sure you can follow her all over the place. Okay. All right. So you were saying some of the parts of your story have become more important.
Yes. As I was saying, dance fell by the wayside as I pursued competitive swimming. I did that for about 15 years into college. And then I got, throughout those years, I was injured, had some experiences with PT that, reflecting on them now, were not the best experiences. And so had some ups and downs in my career, eventually stopped in college after my first year. And then coincidentally picked up dance again, joined a hip hop troupe group. It was like around the time that America's Best Dance Crew was very popular. So,
oh yeah. Do you have any like footage from that?
They're probably in the depths of YouTube somewhere.
Okay.
But, so I did that, fell back in love with dance. And then right after I graduated from undergrad, I went straight into physical therapy school. So I did my undergrad at Drexel University in Philadelphia. I went, it was like literally I graduated the second week of June and then had a week off. And then the third week of June, I started my summer session for PT at New York University. It was at New York University that I met my business partner. His name is Erwin Seguia. He also happens to be my boyfriend. So that's like a whole other conversation because people ask us how it is working with our significant others all the time.
Oh.
We could have like a whole probably 4-hour conversation on that.
Oh gosh.
But as we went through physical therapy school, we both had this vision, like our 5-year plan was either being a manager of some type or we were going to have our own practice. And so I graduated in 2014, started practicing with a very big, well-known orthopedic group, outpatient group here in New York City. I was there for probably a year and a half, and it was like, oh God, it was like all the horror stories you hear about high volume and productivity numbers and making sure you hit this number so you can get your full salary type of deal. But while I was doing that, probably within the last 6 months that I was at that job, I was reaching out to CrossFit gyms in the New York City area. So in 2012, while I was still in PT school, one of my best friend in PT school, actually, she started doing CrossFit. And that was when CrossFit was on this big upswing. So they were opening left and right. Nobody, if you did it, you couldn't stop talking about it. Everyone knew that person. So my friend was that person. And so she was like, she said that I should try it because for one of our courses in PT school, we needed to pass the CSCS examination.
Oh, really?
So, so which I really didn't see the value in it until probably recently, like once I was graduating and a couple of years in. But for the CSCS, they one of the exercises that they wanted you to know was a snatch and a clean and jerk. And I was like, I don't know what these are. So I went to, she's like, you should go to CrossFit because they teach you how to do it. Yeah. So I tried it. I actually really enjoyed it. And I hadn't really trained consistently since I stopped swimming. So it was actually really good for me and a good segue to get back into the gym and get back into training again. I would try to go at this point, like I would try to go to the gym, but I would just get bored. And I was used to being coached, so I didn't have a coach. And so I would just kind of stick to the stuff that I like to do. I would try to go on runs, but my knees would always hurt. I had knee problems even while I was swimming. So that was actually one of the things I went to PT for. So I hated running because my knees always hurt, and I was also just not very good at it. So CrossFit, lifting heavy things, and trying to do like random gymnastics things that I thought looked really cool seemed like a good idea. Yeah. So also around this time, Kelly Starrett out on the West Coast was becoming very popular with how to become a supple leopard, mobility WOD. And so Erwin and I noticed that nobody was really doing that on the West Coast. So that was more so why we started reaching out to all these CrossFit gyms, because they had all heard of Kelly Starrett. But it's funny, and Erwin can tell you more about this part of it, but like pitching to these gyms, I was still in school, he graduated a year before me, but pitching to these gyms, he would go in and be like, yeah, I'm a physical therapist, I think you could really benefit from what I do. And they'd be like, okay, like we don't need you on staff, like I don't know what you think you're coming in here and doing, but you can leave. And so he was like, oh man, like I don't know, at the time there were like 10 or 15 gyms or boxes here in the city, and only 2 saw the value in what we could offer to their members, and we're still with those 2 gyms today.
That's pretty cool. So you started, basically you went into the big box or corporations for therapy, but then shortly thereafter you all transitioned to have your own practice based on.
So I graduated 2014, started working. We started making all of these connections. By then it was already like 2014. We had established 2014-15, I would say. We had established these connections with these 2 CrossFit gyms, and there was just a lot of time spent getting in there, trying to connect with the members. So it was like, if we had usually we both worked in staggered shifts. So it was either like a 7 to 4 shift or an 11 to 8 shift. And anytime we were trying to go into these gyms and connect with the coaches and members, chat with the coaches, get to know them, maybe offer them a quick free session just to show them what we could do. And eventually what ended up happening was our volume grew enough for us to go part-time. And then eventually, I guess 2018 was my first year completely full-time.
Oh,
the
wow.
tax day.
So this is what Irwin started way back in 2012, and then you came in 2014. And so from
Mm-hmm.
14 to 18, basically
Mm-hmm.
4 years of you adding into the team, you were able to come out
Mm-hmm.
full time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What was it like when you were still working at the big corporation in the misery of all of the things that we know about the churn and burn of being in a big corporate healthcare setting? What was it like
Mm-hmm.
trying to build your business, you and Irwin, while you were working in
It was very tough. We obviously had to learn the marketing aspect of it and like what marketing really means. So when you're in that kind of setting, you're getting people because their insurance covers it, and you don't really you do not get enough time to really sit down with them and learn more about them as a person. And so we joined all of the like cash PT groups and learned how to market physical therapy groups. And so um, trying to build relationships with people, even though they knew that we were working with these other in a place that usually takes insurance, was very challenging. And so we had to really be able to sell what we were going to do for them. And for a lot of people, especially in the CrossFit community at that time, every single healthcare provider that they would go to was telling them to stop doing CrossFit. And they would come to see me, and I was like, listen, I do CrossFit. I became like the go-to person for CrossFit at the place that I was working because nobody else wanted to deal with them. Not that they didn't want to deal with them, but they like didn't know what to do with them because they didn't understand. So, so what was nice about connecting with the people in the CrossFit gyms was that they saw me there. They knew that I knew the terminology. I was like pretty good at it, so they trusted me. But
yeah.
but at the same time, like we had to broach that insurance question a lot. And also with direct access, we had some limitations there too. So it was extremely challenging. And it's that job. I was scheduled technically for 45 hours if you count my lunch hour, but I took notes home on the weekends. It was like 8 hours of notes on the weekends. Any free time that I could get, I was trying to see clients before and after work. So it was a grind. But the thought of that I could be doing something and working with the people that I really enjoy working with instead of grinding and churning for 8 to 9 hours a day and then having to take my work home with me and do all this stuff on the time that I could be spending reaching out to more of those people and working with more of those people. That was really what motivated me to try to do more.
Yeah.
And then eventually leave that job.
Right. To be able to keep that at the forefront of your mind. Because I think so many people quit when like it took 4 years for you to get to the point where you were all the way out of the clinic setting.
Yeah. And I did work part-time. So I worked at that one place full-time, and then I worked at another place part-time while things were starting to level out a bit. And then, it gets to that point where you're like, okay, how productive is this time? Should I keep working for this person, or should I be spending these hours working on my business? And that was when I decided to make the switch. And like, it's terrifying. Like you talked about people who have great ideas and they're just terrified. It was fucking terrifying. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but
yes, you can.
Okay. But like I spoke to my family. I told my parents about it, and they immigrated here, from the Philippines, and they both had very long, wonderful careers that they loved. And my mom was like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Like, do you have enough money? Are you going to be in debt? Like, all these decisions." I'm like, I don't know. I was like, yes, I have the money, and I know I can make the money, and I just can't be in that place anymore. It was killing me mentally. And she like thankful. I'm very thankful for her. She's very proud. She does try to refer people to us as much as possible, but she doesn't quite understand exactly what we offer. So
that's too funny. I think our moms are alike. So she'll try to understand. She'll send me articles and stuff, and I'm like, close but no cigar, mom. But thanks for trying.
Yeah, like she and so what's interesting about my family too is, so one of my brothers is also a physical therapist, and he is a clinic manager for a large outpatient ortho company in New Jersey. And so like his experience in physical therapy, and that's what she knows about physical therapy, is very different from what I do now. So so I try to explain it to her, and she's like, well, why don't you take Medicare? And she's like, don't you have to take Medicare? You have to see me if I want to come see you. And I was like,
that's hilarious. Yeah, I think, well, you touched on a few points there. I think that fear is so, like, okay, I guess the question, because I'm even going to ask for myself right now. I'm in that place where you were, where it's like, okay, I'm doing so much work. I really just need to let the hospital go to be able to devote that time. So how did you actually make that pivot or make that leap where you said things are starting to, it's not quite like the numbers don't quite look like you want them to be, and things are still trying to balance out. So how did you just make that leap?
It was actually a lot of kind of outside things that were going on that I couldn't take anymore. So I did not get along with my boss at my part-time job. And it was unfortunately, he was a friend from my previous job at my full-time job. And he actually left our clinic to go start his own practice. And when I decided that I couldn't work at that other place anymore, I reached out to him. And I was very grateful. He gave me a job. He paid me well enough to keep me on my feet, at least. But he also knew that I had this side thing going on, and I could feel like towards the end of it, I was probably there for almost 2 years, I want to say. It was like another year and a half I was at this other practice, but suddenly there was a lot of animosity towards me as he started hiring some other therapists. He hired a couple full-time therapists, and I get it. You have people on a salary, you want to fill their schedules first. That's totally fine. But don't just take my patients and move them onto their schedule without telling them. Like, that's not, first of all, it's not good customer service. Second of all, you're treating your patients like crap. And later on, I learned that reflected really badly upon him for a couple of those patients. So that's like neither here nor there. But there was just a lot of bad energy, and I like to think my intuition is pretty good about a lot of things. So if there's ever a time when I start to feel bad or get some really bad vibes about a situation, then I realize that it's time to go. And this guy was literally pushing me out the door. So I don't know if that's something that you're dealing with at your hospital job, but.
No, I'm very thankful, but in a different way, right? So it's interesting that you mentioned that, like, you felt like you were being pushed out, and where my really only contract where I'm doing work now, there is a lot of transition. So I think it's something interesting that you said about your intuition and things being set up. Like, okay, you had the business, and you were in your mind trying to decide, okay, is it more productive for me to just take this time and work on my business? And then all of a sudden, this is happening at the clinic. And then the same thing with me, I'm asking myself the same question and getting called off frequently, and not have, they're bringing on a lot of people, and I'm like, okay, universe, I'm listening. Exactly. You won't make the decision, the universe will help you.
Right, exactly. And that's like, the same goes the other way. It's like once you decide to do something, the universe kind of conspires to help you with that decision. So
yeah. I rediscovered the word pronoia the other day.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you said. Like the universe is conspiring to help you once you make the decision, because there's a definite difference between a wish or a desire and a decision,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. So I think
Absolutely.
that's cool. There was something that we were talking about when we first met that I think is very interesting, that I didn't know you got your CSCS as a part of PT school, that was
Mm-hmm.
one of the classes. Like I started taking it, and I'm a CrossFit level 1 instructor. So I did a lot of that on my own. But I think that's interesting that was part of your schooling. And I think one of the things that we bonded over was this sense that we didn't quite fit in either world. This sense that there's the wellness professional or the fitness professional, right? And then there is the healthcare professional, the doctor of physical therapy and all these things. And we are somewhere in the middle there. And so could you just kind of talk a little bit about what your experience has been like playing in that mid space? You talked a little bit about it when you're trying to explain, no, Mom, I don't take Medicare. But like, what has that experience been for you from other colleagues?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Something I haven't actually thought about, because I know it's been quite a while since we first talked, but I do feel like personally I've moved more into that wellness and fitness space. You know, a lot of the people who I see now are looking for they're looking for performance improvement. So it's a lot of athletes who are trying to improve their performance. Like a couple of the girls that I'm training right now, one is trying to get recruited for college. So what we're trying to do is, she's a swimmer, which is really nice because it brings me back into swimming. But we're trying to get her times a little bit better. And a big part, I think, what sets us apart from other fitness professionals as healthcare professionals is that we are, or at least have to be, very good at educating. And so at least when it comes to that, I feel like we have the upper hand on a lot of other fitness and wellness professionals, because we have such an extensive knowledge of anatomy and biomechanics and physiology, and the ability to, not that all of us use it all the time, but the ability to try to simplify the information and distribute it in a way that can be understood by the public, because that's really part of our job, right? It's public health. So it's really interesting being in that in between, because some people will seek me out for these performance services, and you know, if they've had previous injuries, or they're still kind of on that up and up from an injury they've had before, they're like, oh, I can't really do that because blah, blah, blah injury. And I said, oh, well, I'm a physical therapist too, so I can help you. Like, this is what we can do to work within your means. But eventually, this is what I want you to be able to do. And so I think, you know, I try not to, we don't even, I think I might have said this to you when we first spoke, but we don't even refer to ourselves as physios or physical therapists anymore. Like upon first meeting of a potential client, or even, cause we contract with teams too. So even a GM or the president of a club or something, like, we don't even call ourselves physios, we call ourselves sports performance coaches. And then we list out what we can provide to that team. So then we're like, we provide strength and conditioning, we can provide rehab, we can provide on-site coverage, because we're both also SCS. We have our clinical specialist in sports. So we can be on the sideline and triage injuries and provide emergency care, like coordinate a player's medical whatever, like we can do that. And so then they're like, oh, like, what's your background? It's like, I'm a doctor of physical therapy, I'm a blah, 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 go down through all the things.
Right.
And so yeah, I feel like my journey has changed a lot since the beginning. Even in the past year, I've had a lot of I guess revelations where I finally figured out exactly where I want to go. And so that's what
mind sharing one
this
with
year
us?
is. Sure. So yeah, so this year for me is about um, helping young female athletes. And part of that, it kind of came on when the Mary Kane story broke with Nike and the Oregon Project. And for those of you who don't know, Mary Kane was a phenom when she was a high school track runner. And she went pro, right? I can't remember if she went pro before she graduated high school or right out of high school, decided not to run in college. But she basically tanked and nobody knew why. And then she came out with an editorial in the New York Times not too long ago. It was a few months. It was like before the new year. But she reported that she was emotionally abused by her coach. They did not have sports psych on staff that she could talk to. They did not have a proper sports nutritionist, and she was always being told to lose weight. She was hiding snacks because she was so hungry, but she had to hide everything that she was eating because she would get weighed in front of the whole team and get berated in front of her whole team. And then obviously her performance dropped, and she had like, I think it was like 3 or 5 stress fractures in the course of a few years, which is like, hello, red flag. Like, you know, she was missing her period. She had suicidal thoughts and wanted to kill herself. Like, so for me, it's about teaching young female athletes who may want to go into the college or professional level and trying to help them recognize what a good, supportive, healthy training environment is and what a toxic, not healthy, abusive training environment is. And
yeah, I like your message on that, because I've seen some of the things you posted about how people have talked about your shape or your weight or whatever. And I love the holistic approach to things. And I think you were mentioning that you all do the strength training, the nutrition, and the mental component of things, and that you also do distance training. So anybody that is listening to this or watching this could have the opportunity to work with you as well. Is that correct?
Yep. So we do programming remotely. It's not our favorite way to work because we prefer that in-person connection and being able to give you that feedback on the spot. But you know, if your resources are limited where you are, we are happy to provide remote support from wherever you are.
Well, I thank you so much for your time. I want to ask you one last question. Like, if you could go back to your younger self when you were trying to make these decisions about taking the leap and doing something different, like not following your brother's footsteps towards the clinic manager, what would you tell yourself?
I would have said just go for it and start sooner. Start sooner. Definitely, you're probably gonna fail more than you're gonna win, and that's okay. And to be like, I've had a lot of struggle with failure and being able to pick yourself up from it. Again, mostly because, like I said, my parents immigrated here, and it's when they wanted, not that they provided, I wasn't, what's the word I'm looking for? I was like, growing up, I was fine. Like, I really didn't have to worry about a lot. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. But a lot of things that kind of got passed down from that generation that came here for a better life and just wanted better for their kids. Some of the things, there's actually an article going around. It's a blog article specifically about Filipino Americans and mental health. But there's kind of a whole culture around success and comparison, and even if you make a comment that's not meant to be, you make a comment that's not meant to be degrading in any way, but just the way that it's delivered, it absolutely um, elicits some kind of response. So I dealt with a lot of that as a kid. So coming up into this generation now where everybody is like, there are so many entrepreneurs and people who want to coach other people, and people, you know, millennials get criticized for wanting to change the world in some way. But that's really like what I found is that if you follow your true north, like when we talk to people who ask us how we got to where we are, and they like don't know where to start. We're like, well, what's your true north? What's your North Star? What's your calling? What is that thing that keeps pulling you or keeps coming up, or you just can't stop thinking about it? And what is that? And you need to go follow that.
Yeah. It's it sounds so simple, and it's like, well, duh, right? But it's so interesting, and it's fascinating that you talk about it. It's the same thing in the African American community. We, I think, quiet our intuition because of so many shoulds and supposed tos. And when I'm coaching people to try to figure out what their genius is what I call it, sometimes it is a taxing conversation just to get a person to really say what they want, not what they think they can have or what they should want. But it's so rewarding when we can get them on the other side. So I'm excited to continue the conversation in the Facebook group live for a few minutes. And thank you so much for being here for those that are watching the replay. Let me see if I can make this work. Okay. It's here. Okay. So we do have some people on live, and there's a bit of a delay. So Betsy was asking what your IG page is. What is your Instagram page?
So my Instagram page is my first name, Rena, Rena, last name Eleazar, PT.
Okay. And it's really cool the way you have it set up.
Thank you.
Let's see. Teresa is saying what a phenomenal mission.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
If anybody, it's a bit of a delay here. So if anybody that is on, we still have a few people that are on watching with us. We'll stay on for the next few minutes. If you have any questions or any comments, or you want to ask her anything, speak now, forever hold your peace, people, because the reason we're doing it this way is, like, I just had this sense of, whenever I listen to a bunch of podcasts and books and things like that, and sometimes I'm listening to these conversations, or I'm listening to these people talk, and I'm like, wait, but I don't understand, or wait, but what about this thing, or how does it relate to me? So if you have any questions or comments or want to add to the conversation, we'll stay on for just a few more minutes, and then we'll let Ms. Rena get back to her day. So funny being able to hear myself in this leg. Oh boy. Do you ever do any of the marketing, or do you ever do any of the marketing? Or is it mostly your boyfriend doing it?
So Erwin, he's like so creative, and like we're both creative in very different ways, but he has a wonderful visual eye, so I let him take care of all of that.
Well, yeah. Oh, because your website is awesome.
Thank you.
I love that one too. But like,
I will make sure to tell him.
So like you establish like marketing, and I feel this way too, is about building relationships. So I know he was pounding the pavement and knocking on the doors and all of that stuff in the beginning. Do you participate in any of that as well?
Yeah. So once I decided that I wanted my focus to be more on youth female athletes, I was trying to make connections to some of the private schools in the area. There are quite a few all girls high schools. So I was trying to connect with athletic directors. I have befriended some moms of younger kids who are starting to play a lot more sports. So just trying to connect with them, get in touch with their coaches, basically talk to anybody who would lend me their ear for a second, just so I can say what I want to say. Yeah. And one of the things that I did that was like so time consuming, but it ended up paying off in the long run. Like, I don't know if anybody else is really interested in going after the young athletic population, but if you can find the governing body for whatever that sport is. So for example, USA Swimming, there are chapters all over the country with all of the clubs that are in that chapter. So I literally went through the Metro New York chapter, club by club, email address by email address, just trying to set up meetings with anybody who would listen. And that's actually how I got connected with my swimmer who's trying to get recruited for college, was through her coach, who I actually got to talk to. So yeah, like that kind of marketing, yes, I do a lot of that.
So you had to do personal outreach. Was that scary for you to email all of those people?
It was terrifying. And then, you know, you're like, you're at that point where you send out all these emails and a few days goes by and you're like, oh my God, nobody's read my email. And then you try to reach out again just to say, hey, like, I sent this email, want to know what you think. But actually there's this one, I think he's an athletic director, who, like, he was talking to me for a while and then he kind of started ghosting me. And Juanita in this group, who we met up when she came to New York City, she had a great recommendation because she actually does a lot of social media marketing strategy stuff. But she actually gave me a great idea, and she was like, well, why don't you just kind of narrow down what you're offering and actually give him something that he can look at so that he can make a decision on it, versus you saying, oh, I can come in and talk about all of these things. Which, Juanita, if you're watching, I haven't gotten around to doing that yet, but it is on my list of things to do for sure.
Yeah, the never-ending to-do list. So good. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time and just sharing your story and the realness of it, because yes, it may be terrifying. Yes, it may be time consuming, but as far as I can tell, it seems to be worth it. So.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. I am humbled to be your first guest.
All right. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.
You too. Bye.